markets is that through deglobalization, through remilitarization, through the fact that actually austerity is pretty much dead. You know, they're having to go in the States, but they're going to find it awfully difficult. You know, the mantra really is to go for growth here, whether we're in the UK, particularly Europe as well. You know, we know all about the 500 billion fund that the Germans have to spend. So I think, you know, there's an awful lot of fiscal impetus really globally, and you know that's going to keep inflation a little bit sticky. You know, it's still going to be volatile. We're going to get periods of lower inflation, but at net, we think inflation's sticky. We think bond issuance is brisk, and for that reason, you know, we expect steeper curves. And so, you know, we like shorter dated bonds. We don't like longer dated bonds because ultimately, when we look at how markets are behaving, you know, in the presence of any inflation, bonds and equities are a lot more correlated. Now, there's days when there's negative correlation, there's days when there's positive correlation. But as we've seen over the last couple of years, in the presence of any inflation, certainly they are more correlated, and you know the market is going through a process here of actually questioning whether duration actually has utility. So we don't like to take lots of duration. You know, we like the shorter end of the curve. We like to compound up you know, the yield at the shorter end of the curve. Our investment philosophy is that when we look at credit markets in particular, and developed market credit, you know, there's an awful lot of opportunities, and pretty much on a daily basis. You know, if we put some figures around that, we look at last year, for example, in the European market, 14.8 billion of equity IPOs, 1.4 trillion of corporate bonds issued. So, you know, there's an awful lot of opportunities within that 1.4 trillion, and that's just primary. You know, there's secondary market opportunities as well. So, you know, there's no need to be stamp collectors here. We can take lots and lots of small amounts of profit from the market by identifying mispriced opportunities, and therefore kind of optimizing the portfolio pretty much on a daily basis. Well, you know, if we think about really what fixed income is there for, it's there to provide some kind of portfolio ballast. And, you know, if duration, if these long duration bonds are kind of losing their utility, they're volatile, you know, sometimes they're not correlated to equity, sometimes they are, then really we need to think back to, you know, what we want from fixed income. And it's that portfolio ballast. And we think that now is coming from the short end. It's coming from yield compounded up at the short end. You know, if we as fund managers can give that kicker as well on top of that yield, in terms of the alpha we're generating from optimizing the portfolio pretty much every day, then, you know, it becomes, I think, that compounding, that fixed income, let's say, compounding fixed income, can become very powerful in a portfolio context in terms of certainly dampening or overall portfolio volatility.